Hello, it's me, Clayton. I just finished watching Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms, which is a direct sequel to the Mortal Kombat animated film from last year known as Scorpion's Revenge. So, this film directly takes place after the events of Scorpion's Revenge, after Scorpion defeats Quan Chi, and after the first Mortal Kombat tournament of the timeline is taken care of. And then, in this movie, we see that the Earthrealm and the Outworld are at war with each other, but enough blood has been shed to the point where the Earthrealm is basically desperate to end the conflict for good. So Raiden decides to try and have a final Mortal Kombat with Shao Kahn in order to end the conflict once and for all. All while Scorpion is tricked by Shinnok to find this MacGuffin that he needs to summon the One Being. But that's all I'll say about the story. While the movie does provide a lot of really good action and animation as expected from the team that did a lot of the animation of the first movie, this does feel like a film that tries to stuff too much material into one film. The opening makes it seem like it's going to be Liu Kang's origin story, just like how Scorpion's Revenge was obviously Scorpion's origin story. But Scorpion and Sub-Zero, the second Sub-Zero, Kuai Liang, have their rivalry to go through in this movie, while it also deals with Cyrax and Sector becoming Robo Ninjas and the whole conflict that revolves around that from the games, as well as a final Mortal Kombat tournament which finally shows us Shao Kahn and the rest of his minions taking on the Earthrealm heroes. It feels like one of these storylines alone would have been more than enough, especially since the end of the movie just feels like it gives up and basically has a final battle with Shinnok that kind of reminds me of Mortal Kombat Annihilation, minus the terrible CGI in that film. Granted, the final battle actually does look somewhat interesting there, but it's barely set up and there's no time whatsoever to register Shinnok as a final threat. And I think that's the big problem with this film. While the last Mortal Kombat film was also pretty fast-paced when it came to its material, I feel like the material it covered was well-worn enough to the point where you can tell they were just rushing through it to get to the good stuff. And in my opinion, it actually worked there. Here, it feels like one of these storylines, if fleshed out enough, could have been good on its own. Instead, they try to smush all of them together into one film that barely lasts for 80 minutes. Therefore, there's not enough time for any of these storylines to coalesce. And it feels like the movie's just rushing from one plot point to the next, and rushing from one fight to the next. I do appreciate seeing some of the other Mortal Kombat characters from the later games, like D'Vorah, Reiko, Melina, and even Stryker joins in this movie. But it feels like a lot of them aren't really given enough time to really stand out as characters. And even some of the old faces just seem to do the usual shtick that we'd expect from them in these movies. Sonya and Johnny have their little back-and-forth love story. That's something we've seen a million times. Raiden gets, I think, one of the more interesting storylines where he has to give up his godhood. But that isn't explored all the way either. And even Katana betraying Shao Kahn, it doesn't register as much as it does in the games, because even though there's an attempt to build it up, it sort of comes out of nowhere when it does. It just feels like this is a story where it could have used a lot of rewrites, and it could have focused on one of these storylines throughout its entire runtime, as opposed to trying to fit all of them into one film. With that being said, the animation's pretty good, the voice cast is excellent, and it does manage to give Mortal Kombat fans what they want when it comes to the violence and fatalities. I just wish it was in a film that had a better use of its time. That's why I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. See you next time.